morning, everybody. A little abrupt end of the music this morning. Thank you for stopping in this morning. If you do pop in, welcome to everybody watching us this morning on TGI Sports Talk, obviously. Got a little hesitation again. God darn it. TGI Sports Talk viewers, Northeast Streaming Sports, Let's Talk Sports. I'll still say Sideline Sports. Not sure what's going on there, but we'll find out. And welcome to everybody. By the way, if you don't catch this, if you do catch it, please like and share it with your friends. And those of you who watch it later, I thank you for tuning in too. We've had some great responses to all the shows. The return of the college football huddle on Wednesdays has been phenomenal. More viewers than ever, without games to even talk about. The Major League Baseball update's been taking off on Fridays, doing very well. And this show has been growing in viewership as well. So now let's grow the followers. Please watch the show. If you watch the show, get to TGI Sports Talk, like and follow the show or the page. So welcome, everybody. Lots to talk about today. Looks like a nice day here in the Northeast. Played some golf yesterday, and it was a slow round of golf. 5.5 hours, man. The guys in front of me, if you're watching today, you know, I'll give you some golf balls if you really need them that badly. They're not that expensive. Also, I'm going to bring up a topic today that came up because of golf yesterday. When we get to the football section, I want to talk about Josh Allen. And is Josh Allen a leader? I think he's a great leader, but it came up with some people that were Buffalo fans and not Buffalo fans that somehow Josh Allen is not perceived by them as a leader. So I thought I'd talk about that later. But we're going to get into Major League Baseball. Lots to talk about there. Fernandomania we'll revisit a bit. If you didn't live through it, it was a lot of fun. The Dodgers retired his number 34 yesterday. Jose Bautista retired as a Blue Jay. I want to talk about him a little bit. Trendsetter or just a showboat? I've got some pretty strong opinions about him. We'll get into who's winning. Listen, the Dodgers are red hot. Dave Roberts needs to get his due that this team, this is his best managing job ever. Am I wrong about the Cubs? I was wrong about Texas. Am I wrong about the Cubs? Can the Marlins, the Yankees, the Indians, can any of these teams get back in it? What else I want to talk about? Lots of stuff we'll get into. We'll get into your topics as well. DeMar Hamlin returned to the field for the Bills yesterday. That's a cool story. Want to talk about the Suggs sentencing, the Raiders player who was convicted of vehicular manslaughter, and we'll talk about his sentence and what we think about that. We'll get into the NBA and the Hall of Fame inductions, maybe talk about FIBA a little bit. College football, we'll talk a little of news there. Jim Harbaugh tried to cut his suspension down. That didn't work out. The widening of the probe on betting, sports betting in Iowa and Iowa State. And maybe at the end, if we have some time or any point in this show, we'll talk some horse racing. I've got very, very strong opinions. I've got some friends of friends that are very big animal rights people, and they think that this is such a cruel sport. And I say it's not. Lots of deaths, but that's what these horses are bred for. They're bred to run. If they didn't run, that would be cruel in my mind. So anyway, we'll get into all those topics and whatever you guys want to chat about today. As always, and let's see who's with us. CA, good morning to you. Dave Guyette's in the room. Yes, we are going to fire Cashman and Boone. Dave, I don't know. I'm curious why Dave didn't seem to be able to comment in the room on Friday for the Major League Baseball update. So he actually texted me his weekly fire of Cashman and Boone. Good morning, Rick Sherlock. Good to have you with us. Hopefully you enjoyed. I forgot what you told me yesterday. You were having a cocktail. Oh, old-fashioned. I love a nice old-fashioned, man. By the way, the old-fashions have become my drink of choice at the Alchemy bars on the cruise ships. I was always a martini guy. And I had an old-fashioned last year. Oh, God. Coming up, coming up. Just 6 more weeks. We'll be on our second cruise this year. Morning, Kenny. Good to have you with us. Kenny Gifford up there on the mountain. What's going on, man? NFL preseason. I didn't talk too much about the NFL. I did talk a little bit, but I want to talk about Hamlin and some other things. Preseason matter? No, wins and losses don't matter. And I really think veterans need to play more. Some interesting things happened the other day, though, and we'll get into those. So let's take a quick look. Well, we'll start with some Major League Baseball. Fernandomania. I'll get it. We'll talk about the standings and the teams and whatnot here in a little bit. But I want to talk about a couple players that have retired. Fernandomania. Fernando Valenzuela, for those of you who lived under a rock in the 80s or are younger than that. Felix Hernandez had his number retired by Seattle. Great pitcher. And Jose Bautista. Now, Fernando, for those who don't know, Fernando was a phenomenon back in 1981 during the strike season for the Dodgers. Supposedly he was 20. He could have been 30. We don't really know. Played in the Mexican leagues. Dodger scouts found him. And he led the team to a World Series victory that year over the Yankees. And he had a very, very good career after that. Probably was overused a little bit, maybe. Again, it's a little contrary to some other things I've had to say. Hey, listen, you only got so many pitches in your arm, I guess. And again, it also could point to the fact that he wasn't as young as he said he was when he got here. But Fernando pitched a lot of innings and had a very good career. Stuck around for a long time, pitched a no-hitter late in his career. Pitched for a few teams later on. But Fernando, he's not going to be a Hall of Fame pitcher. But he was a really, really big name in the sport for quite a while. And in 1981, there was no bigger name in baseball than Fernando Valenzuela. And I think it's interesting to me that it's taken this long for the Dodgers to actually retire his number. So, what do we got? Unfortunately, the Mets seem to have quit 21-3. Listen, 6 home runs yesterday for the Braves. The Mets, I don't think the Mets have quit. They traded everybody, Rick. Another topic I want to talk about today. A lot of the articles in the Post today talking about how some of the players felt that Mr. Verklander was a bit of a diva in that Met clubhouse. Pitch and moan is the headline. I love it. Including Max Scherzer had a problem with Verlander, and some of the other Mets did. Listen, I'll give the Mets and Buck Showalter a pass the rest of this year. If they don't win another game, I don't think it's because they quit. They don't have pitchers. You're going to see a lot of names you never heard of pitching for the Mets for the next, couple of months. And it's a long, long way to October still. So, yes, there's some veterans left there that, need to kind of maybe step up a little bit and lead a little bit. And if they quit, that's fine. But I think the lack of pitching that this team's going to throw out there. Who started yesterday? Tyler McGill, I think. No, he might have started Friday night. I'm not sure who started yesterday. We'll take a look at it. Did I see these 10 to 12-year-old girls throwing it around 60 miles an hour? I did watch some of the in fact, when I stopped for a couple of beers after golf yesterday, they had some of this softball on. These girls were really throwing hard. And by the way, I will get into the conversation maybe later. We've talked in the past about some of the odd sports that we found around. I found 2 last weekend in one day. Professional pillow fighting. I can't believe it. On ESPN. I got through the show, got myself set up outside to relax, share the show, do what I do. And what's on professional pillow fighting. and foot golf, which we'll talk more about later. Basketball Hall of Fame is a joke, putting in people that are average at best. Well, look, I wasn't going to go there yet, Kenny, but let me just attack that for a second. Because I'm looking at an ESPN article here asking if it's the best class of all time. Who's mediocre? Dwayne Wade's a mediocre player? Dwayne Wade's one of the best players to play in his era, and that's all you can compare guys to is who they played against. Hold on, that's not what I wanted. Dirk Nowitzki? Great player. Paul Gasol, I'll give you, okay player. Okay player. Played on some good teams. Was surrounded by great players. Tony Parker? I think he's Hall of Fame worthy. And again, I'm not just going to look at the numbers because, you can't compare numbers and eras. I know I've been hard on Hall of Fame classes in other sports. I was hard on a lot of the players for this last NFL Hall of Fame cycle. The Baseball Hall of Fame for sure. The only guy I would really make an argument about, I guess, would be Paul Gasol. Dwayne Wade, obviously, is a Hall of Famer. Dirk Nowitzki, obviously a Hall of Famer. Maybe I'll give you an argument against Tony Parker as well. But, Jesus, he won like 5 championships. The teams he was point guarding for. Who else got in, by the way? NC State's Jim Valvano. Biggest upset in NCAA history in the final. I think well-deserving. Gene Keady, well-deserving. 7-time Big Ten Coach of the Year. Former Texas A&M women's coach Gary Blair. Quite honestly, I don't know that much about her, so I won't really make an opinion there. Amherst and 2-time Division III champion David Hickson won 2 championships. Does it matter what level you're at? So I'd love to hear your arguments against this class. They're good players. Was that a football game or a baseball game at Shea last night? Well, if it was football, the Mets stunk either way, so they only kicked a field goal. I see myself hesitating again. Really ticks me off. Good morning, Alan. Good to have you with us, by the way. Alan Perales, make sure you check out his stuff over on Let's Talk Sports. Does a great job. His partner on the show, his Oklahoma show, Sean, can't remember Sean's last name. And I think he's hiding under a pseudonym anyway, so maybe I shouldn't say anything. But they do a good job with Oklahoma sports, and hope to get on there and do some arguing about the Big 12 at some point. What do we got here? Kenny agrees the Mets have given up. Yeah. Again, you got to have pitching, man. If you don't have any pitching, and they traded all their pitchers. So we'll see what happens there. I can't really argue too much that I'm not going to go to bat and really stick up for the Mets a lot. Other to say that when they sold everybody at the trade deadline, this was bound to happen. I said they'd be lucky to finish ahead of the Nationals then. And not without giving up. They just don't have the talent now. Sell-offs create opportunities for the young players. Good morning, Drew, by the way. I didn't say good morning to you. If they don't respond and seem to throw it in, then you've got an issue and a legitimate reason for a complete overhaul. Listen, if young players throw it in, you got a problem with those guys, and they should not be in your organization at all. Not even a... I've gotten soft. I haven't gotten soft, I promise. Again, I'm giving one legitimate reason why the Mets are not playing well. Do I think that they should probably play harder? Yes. I'll watch some games. I'll give a better opinion. I'd be quite frank. I have not watched a lot of Mets baseball since the trade deadline. other than checking box scores. Again, when you trade 3/4 of your pitching staff, you're, well, not 3/4, but you know what I mean. Scott Colby, good morning. Good to have you with us. The Mister is certainly not required. Scott and I are the the old folks on the any of the Let's Talk Sports shows. Everybody else is just a kid, for crying out loud, at least relatively speaking. So, Scott, good to have you with us. Also a fellow Patriot fan, by the way, I might add. Rick needs a catcher. Rick, there's hundreds of catchers out there. Just check the ones I've let go this year. Scott says the Mets are another example of throwing money at players that are aging, and I think will produce at a level they used to when they were 25. Great point, Scott. Listen, there was a book written about the Mets. I want to say the 89 Mets. Maybe it wasn't. Could have been the 90 Mets. I'm not sure. Anyway, it goes back in time. And they had brought in Bobby Bonilla, Brett Saberhagen, all these players. And Steve, I think it was Steve Clappish, let's say his name correctly, was a writer with the Post. He wrote a book called The Worst Team Money Can Buy. Well, we're going to need a sequel because that is no longer the worst team money can buy. This has to be the worst team money can buy. $450 million this year on salaries for this team for these results. There's nobody to blame for this except Steve Cohen and Billy Epler. That's it. And the players didn't play well, but, Buck will not. Here's the thing. They still have to hire a president of baseball operations. A lot of names being thrown around. Once they fill that position, Billy Epler and Buck could be vulnerable. And I don't think Buck hasn't had great games every night this year, but I don't see this other than maybe sticking with some veterans, which you have to do. What are you going to do when you don't have other options but to stick with your veterans? I mean, early in the year, Lindor was the one taking the heat for their poor performance, and Scherzer and Verlander. And I think Verlander and Lindor was a little bit overblown. Lindor's had a pretty good year. And this isn't Buck's fault. Buck could pay the price, though. And you're talking to one guy right now who would be very happy if Buck got fired and the Yankees finally do the right thing and move on from Cashman and Boone. I'll bring Buck back full circle to where he started his Major League Baseball managing career and spent all of the early part of his baseball career in general in the Yankee organization. I'd bring him back in a heartbeat. I want somebody who can actually have a feel for the game they're watching in front of them. And Aaron Boone doesn't have it. Aaron Boone, I mean, the only thing I'll give Aaron Boone credit for, he does some very good dramatics when he's arguing with umpires. This week was a classic when he got thrown out by Laz Diaz for arguing balls to strikes, and he's out there drawing the line where the pitch was and giving a dab. There's a great picture. There's a great meme on Facebook. He gave a great dab. So anyway, Kenny, back to this comment. I promise you I've not gone soft. I'm just giving you some reasonable explanations on two things. I was very hard. I don't get soft in a week. I was very hard on when we go back to the Hall of Fame. I'll give you two arguments here. On the Hall of Fame topic, I was just very hard on the baseball and the NFL recent inductees. Again, there's always going to be some people I don't like. I don't think this is a horrible class for the basketball Hall of Fame. How? And as far as, if I'm soft on the Mets, ain't nobody to play. Listen to me talk about the Yankees, my own team. They stink. I'm not going to give them a pass because Nestor's now back and probably won't be back this year. Nestor Cortez is back on the DL. The signing of Rendon, I said in the offseason, was a horrendous, stupid, ridiculous waste of $162 million. I got all over the Rangers, as Alan can attest, for signing DeGrom and guaranteeing $160 million. I'll tell you the same thing about Rendon. I told you that before the season started. I had a couple of Yankee fans calling me out in group chats. Calling me I don't know why. Why do you hate this guy? He's one of the best pitchers in baseball. For a year, all you had to do was look back at his injury history to know it was going to happen. Also didn't like his makeup, which I still don't. Where am I here? Mets are another. Oh, here, I already got that. What do we got, Kenny? Come on, the Yankees have bought some horrendous players and showed it on the field. I said that. I just said that. I've been saying that all along. You can't call me soft on the Yankees. Ever. Ever. I've been calling for Cashman and Boone to get fired for 2 years. Cashman longer. I said the Rendon signing was ridiculous. I said that at the deadline they should have shed cash and got rid of Stanton, eaten the money, just like the Mets did with their pitchers. It's the Yankees, not the Royals. In no way is this acceptable. And I'm a spoiled Yankee fan. One World Series since 2009. Believe me, I am not soft on the Yankees at all. I'm harder on my teams than I are on anybody else. Scott says that's okay. The Mets have been getting blown out, and I will keep making money because of that. Careful, Scott. There'll come a point where they may have enough kids playing, and if they have quit, as Rick and Kenny believe. See, and if it is, that's going to be an indictment on Buck as well. By the way, you as a manager, you cannot allow your team to quit. As we go deeper now into August and then September, the Mets will have more and more kids playing who will care. And they'll start winning some games, and you'll be doubling down. Be careful, Scott. That's all. But for now, congratulations, and keep raking it in. If so, let's fill those last 2 spots in the Fantasy Football League. Would like to keep teams through the show instead of recruiting outside. Yes, there are still 2 spots left in our Fantasy Football League for TGI Sports Talk, which CA has been very gracious to set up. I think Jim Beringer was going to get in. I didn't check to see if he was in yet. I'm going to assume he isn't if there's still 10 teams. But again, you guys want to have some fun and some trash talking? What I will do, I think, for football, I'm not doing, as I said, I'm not going to do the pick 'em pool this year. So I think what I'm going to do is have a survivor pool for anybody who wants to get in. If there's 2 of us, great. If there's 10 of us, it's great too. So survivor pool, first time you lose, you're out. You can pick a team 1 time, and we'll see how that goes. And maybe I won't do it through ESPN. I'll do it through CBS maybe. And I'll get that set up here in the next week or so. Scott Kobe, do I think the Orioles hold the division lead, or does Tampa take it away? No, I think the Orioles hold this lead. Tampa's had way too many. Well, I guess there's a couple of things at play here, right? Where'd my standings go? I totally lost my standings. Well, let's just do it right here. I believe they have still got a 2-game lead. Both teams, again, 6-4 in their last 10, playing pretty good. The Orioles, and again, great feel-good story. And I'm going to kind of segue into why. Listen, I could root for this team on the field. Their ownership just is so tone-deaf and doesn't get it. It's amazing. I talked about this. I know Drew and I went back and forth on it. Not back and forth, but Drew was on the same page, I believe, as I was during the Major League Baseball update. The Orioles have done a great job of ruining or tarnishing, at least. They haven't ruined it, I guess. They've tarnished a feel-good story by their treatment of their TV play-by-play, I believe, Kevin Brown, who they suspended for basically giving the team a compliment on getting better. Talking about how they'd already won 3 out of 5 games at the Tropicana home field of the Rays, where they'd only won 5 out of however many the last 3 years. And the notes, as Drew pointed out, went Friday. The game notes that were handed out by the public relations department of the Orioles themselves had this information in it for the announcers to use. And to me, it's a compliment. Your team's better. The Orioles take it. The Angelos family, no better than the former patriarch, Peter Angelos. One of the reasons this team can't get traction is the ownership is atrocious and tone deaf and cheap. Because they felt, and thin-skinned. God, their own announcer, you don't want never anybody to say anything bad about you. Yankees went through this for years with George Steinbrenner, by the way. Anytime they had an opinionated broadcaster like Tony Kubek, Tim McCarver, Jim Cott at some point, Tom Seaver, anybody who would speak up about the Yankees and what they were watching on the field when there was bad baseball being played, George pressured, and a lot of times the teams have the right of first refusal, if you will, on who the announcers are. But anytime he had somebody that would speak out against the organization, he would find a way to get them to move on or make their life miserable enough to make them move on. No different here with the Orioles. Great feel-good story. A team that's with a bunch of kids we had no idea who they were until a year ago. And even some of them now are not household names. Playing great baseball. Second best record in the major leagues. And they tarnish it with this stupid move of punishing this broadcaster for giving him a compliment. Scott Kobe, hey everyone. If you think the Yankees will be better next year, think again. They have too much money invested in 4 or 5 players, so good luck next year. Listen, I agree, but I disagree, Scott. Do I think they'll be better next year? They will be if they find a way to move on. They can eat the money for these guys if they're willing to pay the luxury tax for a year or two. They could eat the contracts and invest in younger players. The minor leagues are not devoid of good players. Volpe is going to be a good player. Peraza is going to be a good player. I still have faith in Cabrera. They've got to work on some young pitchers. But just because there is a lot of money invested in 4 or 5 players, but that's why I wanted Stanton moved out of here. Now, I will agree with you that this team will be bad next year if they keep approaching the game the way they do. You play in a stadium that is built for left-handed power, and they got one left-handed power bat on the team who isn't hitting home runs, and by the way, is on the DL probably for the rest of the year in Rizzo. I wouldn't doubt you will not see him again because he had a concussion for 3 months, which nobody could tell. Unbelievable. I have people ask me every day if I have a concussion. But if their approach to building a roster is the same, well, then yes, good luck next year. But the money, this isn't the Royals. The Mets, the Red Sox, your Red Sox, the Yankees, the Dodgers, money's not important. They can spend the money. They're not the Royals. They're not the Rays. You can eat contracts, still bring in good players, and have to pay the money. But the problem is the Yankees don't spend it wisely. So, yes, Cashman's put them in a horrible bind with the Stanton contract, and forget about it. And one of those 4 or 5 players, it better not be Aaron Judge, because Aaron Judge is worth every nickel that he gets. I'm talking about money invested in guys who are not worth what we're paying them and probably have never been. Carlos Rondon and Stanton lead the pack. But they're going to have – they got Bader's a free agent. Half the pitching staff are free agents, I think. So you do have a point, Scott, but I think not – entirely because of the reason you're talking about. I think just because they will go out, they can go out and spend money. It's about how they do it. If Cashman's still there, minding the store and writing the checks, well, Steinbrenner's writing the checks, but he's spending the money. What's this fantasy football thing? Well, I can post it, repost it again on the page, Kenny. I posted it. CA set it up. Just a fun league to play. I think you said it was above your capabilities when I first posted it, but I'll put it up again. I think I sent it to you actually in a message, and that's where you might have responded that it was above your capabilities. I'll send it to you again if you want to, get in and give it a go. The league is published publicly in Yahoo Free Custom Leagues. The draft is the 20th of this month. That's our fantasy league. There are some. See, I don't know which one that one's about. Oh, there you go. He must have stopped typing. There are some good players in the minors, but not enough to make the Yankees better. They need at least 7. Listen, I said this before, and one of the reasons I wasn't excited about the trade deadline and them go out and buying is there was too many problems, right? We got a problem without having left-handed power hitters, as I said. We had a problem behind the plate because Trevino got hurt, although Higgy's playing pretty well right now. You got a problem in center field and left field because Bader can't stay healthy. I love Harrison Bader. He's a hometown kid. And if I thought he could stay on the field, I'd be signing him long term right now. But as it is, the Yankees probably will let him walk in free agency. Hole in left field, holes in a rotation. The bullpen has been pretty good for the most part, but there's going to be some open spots there. So Kenny's not wrong. There's a lot that's needed, and I'm not telling you it can't be fixed. I'm telling you the people are not in place that will be able to fix it. I've been watching a right-handed hitting team in a left-handed hitting ballpark for about 4 years now. CA wants to know who's going to manage the Yankees. And I say anybody but Aaron Boone. To me, best case scenario, Buck gets fired and the Yankees bring him home. I said this at the top of the show, earlier in the show. I don't know. It's interesting. Some of the guys that I would never have wanted to come in here and manage have been very successful. Gabe Kapler comes to mind. Not to be confused with Gabe Kaplan. Welcome back, Cotter. I'd bring Buck back here. Problem is, again, I'm not for firing guys for the sake of firing them. I need a better candidate. So I don't want to know who they're considering bringing in here before I replace Aaron Boone. Aaron Boone is just, in my mind, has always been Cashman's water boy. He's too again, there's nothing wrong with supporting your players, but he never calls anybody out. I have watched bad base running for 3 years now, 4 years now. Even in the Friday night game where they were had the game in hand. I shouldn't say in hand. They were ahead handily. Game should have been in hand, and they still had some bad base running. Volpe with a horrible play, getting picked off on they scored. It was actually the hit that kind of broke the game open. Well, Volpe's there's a single to left center that plays right in front of him, and he gets himself caught in no man's land between second and third. Oh. That's the kind of stuff I've been watching for 4 years. I say it all the time. Gleyber Torres, watch him run. It's an adventure all the time. I'm going to run till I get tagged. I'm not being soft on Judge. You can't. First of all, you guys don't understand the whole Aaron Judge thing at all. Aaron Judge is the face of the team. Aaron Judge means more to this team than what he does on the field. That's what I said when he was negotiating his contract. That's what I said last winter. That's what I said in the years leading up to it. Aaron Judge is worth 5 times to the Yankees what he will be paid. Plus, when he's healthy, he's one of the best players in baseball. And don't tell me he's injury prone. This injury this year was a freak injury. I'm not soft on Judge. I need Judge on the field. But why would I be hard on the best player, one of the best players in baseball? Plays hard, knows how to play the game, gets it. Now, so you want me to lump Judge in with Donaldson and Stanton and Rondon? I'm not going to do it. So that's not soft. Common sense. Dave Guyette. Every time the Yankees win the World Series, I have people tell me the money won the Yankees the World Series. Well, money doesn't win the World Series. We know that. We watched it with the Yankees. We've watched it with the Mets. We've watched it with lots of other teams. Houston doesn't have one of the highest payrolls in baseball, and they win consistently. And they're a better team than the Yankees. So tell those people to go pound salt. As long as, now I'm not saying the Yankees don't spend money on free agents, but that's not what it's all about. I will agree with you there, Kenny. Yes, you could do a better job of managing than Aaron Dab. My new nickname for him is Dab. Aaron Dab Boone. Let me turn this. Something's giving me some hesitation here. It's driving me nuts. Yankees need someone like Billy Martin. Dave, I will agree 100%. Baseball, forget about the Yankees. Baseball needs somebody like Billy Martin to come in and manage and change the way we approach the game. Somebody who manages by his gut and his baseball instincts, not reading off some freaking script of what I want to, how the game ought to go. Baseball could use a couple managers like Billy Martin to change the direction this game is going and just sit there relying on the 3 true outcomes, which is BS of the highest order. And we keep rewarding it. Even in fantasy baseball leagues, we reward it. I used to see the rebounds by Altuve, and Alcantara pitched a great game yesterday against the Yankees. And by the way, complete game. What did he give up? Well, he did give up a run, right? Almost set a shutout, but I think, they scored 1 run. 5-hitter. Hadn't been pitching very well, but he did lower his ERA now to 4.09, so he's pitching better. Shutting down his Yankee lineup isn't exactly the Arraez homered in this game, by the way, which is not his forte. Marlins trying to recover. Altuve's played well. You can hate on Altuve all you want. He's one of the great players. I got into another thing. I got into an argument with, I don't know, a month or two ago. I might have mentioned it on the show. It's one group, and they're always posting just a name, and when you think of X, what do you think? What's the first thing that comes to your mind? Altuve, I said a first ballot Hall of Famer. Boy, did I get ripped. Cheater. Guys, forget about that. Ridiculous. So good. Oh, Kenny, you almost got that would have been a stinger there, eh? Diamondbacks do finally end their losing streak against the Padres, ironically. I talked about, some teams that, can they get back in it? Teams that have struggled recently. The Marlins were one. Marlins are looking to take 2 out of 3 from the Yankees today. The Reds, I think the Reds, the last I looked, were still holding on to the last wild card spot. I don't know if that's still the case. And they fall behind the Cubs. So a team I was wrong about, maybe. I ripped the Cubs for what they did or didn't do at the trade deadline. Maybe I was wrong. So can some of the feel-good stories, the Orioles we talked about being a great feel-good story, can some of the other feel-good stories come back this year? The Marlins, who were at one point 13 games over 500, they're now only 4 games over. Been playing really badly. Played well yesterday against the Yankees. Didn't play well Friday night. Can they get back in form? Can the Diamondbacks? Drew just mentioned they broke a long losing streak. They're still 1-9 in their last 10. And the Reds, 2-8 in their last 10. Now they're a half game out of the wild card. Marlins are a half game out of the wild card. Diamondbacks are 3. Padres only 5. And now they're not 4 games under. I said in the Major League Baseball update that it seemed that, where the hell's that light coming from? I must have hit the light. Sorry about that. Yeah, I said on the Major League Baseball update, every time I looked, the Padres were 4 games under. Every time. Now they're 5. So it's going to be interesting to see which of these teams can come back. But I was wrong on a bunch of teams. I don't know whether I should say I'm wrong on the Cubs just yet. We'll see. Maybe time still needs to tell there. I'm certainly wrong on Texas. I said before the season this team wasn't ready to win. They shouldn't have been signing guys like DeGrom, and they probably had reacted too soon, signing guys like Seager and Simeon the year before. But guess what? This team is now 23 games over 500, 9-1 in their last 10, getting contributions from. It's ticking me off here a little bit. Why won't that go away? Anyway, not sure what the problem is there. We won't worry about it for the moment. I said getting good contributions from Scherzer. Not vintage Scherzer, but he's won his first couple starts. Made some big moves at the deadline. They're going for it. And this is a team that probably should. They're not in the same position as the Diamondbacks. They're not in the same position as even the Orioles. The Orioles are going for it, but not going for it the way the Rangers are. They're not in the same position as some of these teams, the Reds even, right? They're not ready to really contend right now. So good moves. And by the way, I said this Friday, people got to start giving Mark Mancini, call you out, give Dave Roberts some credit. This guy is one of the best managers in baseball. He has done he's a manager of the year for me. Dodgers are 24 games over 500 now. They've won 7 in a row, 9 out of 10. And, their biggest pitcher they could get was Lance Lynn in the trade deadline. He's had every pitcher on his starting staff basically injured at one point or another this year. Lost his starting shortstop. I think he was going to play shortstop in Lux. 8.5 games ahead of the Giants. 12.5 ahead of the Diamondbacks, they were trailing for the longest time this year. Dave Roberts is one of the best managers in baseball. Should be considered for the Manager of the Year award this year. Paula's been with you too long. She wants to know how smoking dabs has anything to do with the nickname. Not doobs. I don't know. We called them dabs. That's news to me. So, no, the dab. Remember, it was a dance thing. Cam Newton used to do it in the end zone. Laz Diaz does it in his strikeout call. He's got this whole. Go watch the video of Aaron Boone getting thrown out the other night by Laz Diaz. And she has been with you too long, Kenny. Steve Matt's resurgence. Glad to see it, but what the heck? Steven Matz, big Mets prospect at one point. If I'm not mistaken, he got traded to Toronto, and I don't even remember who for now. But never seemed to live up to his potential. This is, Christ, a decade ago when I think he first was coming on the scene, wasn't it, Drew? Around the time that they were going to the World Series, maybe less than a decade, I don't know, but just before the World Series run, maybe in 2015. But nice to see. Listen, again, some players, it just takes longer to click. Left-handed pitchers sometimes take longer to click. That's why they pitch till they're 100. I mean, look at Rich Hill is pitching today or pitched yesterday. Graduated a year behind me. Might have been at the Perth All Years reunion yesterday. I don't know. Didn't make it myself. Don't know if any of my regular Perth people made it. I did not. Rick, you could be my bathing attendant and hand out toilet paper. I think I know what we're talking about there. Drew, Brewers will be hard to catch. Woodruff back. Burns is starting to pitch much better. Listen, when these two guys are healthy, they're two of the best pitchers in baseball. They might be the best 1-2 in baseball. Pitching, defense. The Milwaukee calling cards, I think, is what he's going for there. I agree. The lack of offense could hurt them come playoff time. This team is going to win this division. I still don't see the Cubs or the Reds making a run at them. It's only 2.5 in 3 games. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think this team is, and again, Craig Counsell, one of the most underrated guys, manager-wise in baseball, and I see no reason to think this team is not going to be maybe a tough out in October unless the offense derails them. I like pitching. I like defense, timely hitting. You go back and look at the Yankees teams from the 90s into the early 2000s, that dynasty from 96 to like 2001. They didn't win, I know, in 2001. Even 2003. They lost the World Series in both those years, 2001, 2003. But they won 4 and 5 years, remember, before that. That team was not, by the way, to Dave Guyette's point, that team was not bought. Take a look at the core 4 and more on that team and tell me where they came from, okay? And there was no guys hitting 50 home runs on that team. They had good pitching. They had good defense. They had timely hitting. There were some guys who could put the ball out of the park, but they also worked the count like no team in baseball. They approached the game the right way. No three true outcome baseball there. Who's barking CD? We haven't been able to hook up in a while. He's busy, man. He's got a lot of stuff going on. Diamondbacks and Reds may not make the playoffs, but both are good for the future, good for baseball. I agree on both accounts. The Reds, again, the oldest team in Major League Baseball, and I think they deserve. Baseball's better when they are better, I think. I think when the small markets can be good, it's good for baseball anyway. And again, I think in my comments, I did not want to say they were folding for any other reason than they weren't ready to win today. I talked about the Diamondbacks. Drew talked about the Diamondbacks. I was not that high in the Reds, but obviously they are way ahead of where I thought they were, and I think they'll be fine. Dodgers 9-1 past 10 games, as I just talked about, 7-game winning streak and the second highest lead in the majors behind the Braves, which this was a dogfight, this race, just a month ago. And now they're making a mockery of it. And again, as I said, time to give Dave Roberts his due. One of the best managers in baseball. It's going to be very fun. I talked about a little bit Friday. The Mariners were really kind of quiet at the trade deadline, made some minor moves. They did trade their free agent to be, I believe he was a free agent, to be Sewell to the Diamondbacks, which certainly hasn't helped the Diamondbacks. But the Mariners have been on a pretty good tear, 8-2 in their last 10, and probably even better than that if we go back over 20, because they moved to 10 games over 500. It wasn't that long ago they were fighting to get to 500. Only 6.5 back of the Rangers. Where do they sit in the wild card race here? And by the way, the Astros are only 2.5 behind the Rangers. As well as the Rangers are playing, do not sleep on the defending champions. You are the champion until somebody dethrones you. And the Astros know how to win in October. And don't tell me it's with trash cans, because that's bullshit. Excuse my French. What was I talking about? Mariners, half game behind the Blue Jays right now for the last wild card spot. That's going to be a fun race. Yankees still hanging around the peripherals at 4 games back, but they're fooling themselves because this team can't possibly make noise in the postseason. So this should be a really good race for the West, and you're going to have at least one of those teams make a wild card that doesn't win. So listen, I love pennant races. The pennant races have been, watered down a little bit because of 3 wild cards. But to me, they still mean something because you don't have to play in that wild card series. You get a little more time off. At least the best team does. So I think you're going to see really good races between the Rays and the Orioles. The Central, I don't think will be a race. I think the Twins will find a way to. Again, they're up 4.5 games, and I think the team formerly known as the Indians are not going to. They're not just not getting it back. They would have done it by now. I think we're going to see, as Drew just said here, great race in the West, because I'm not counting the Mariners. I don't win this division yet. You won't have a race in the AL East. You probably won't have a race in the Central, as Drew kind of talked about before. The Brewers, I think, are good enough that they'll probably pull away here, and you won't see a race in the West. So the races are going to be for the wild cards, right? And this is what baseball wants. In the National League, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams within 5 games of each other for 3 spots. I don't think anybody further back I'm going to seriously consider, because the Pirates, who stink, are 8.5. If you had a good team back there, that I'd say maybe they can make a run, but there are no good teams back there. The American League has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams within 6.5, and I'm discounting the Angels. So even the Yankees, I mean, they're in the race by the numbers, but the eye test tells me they can't possibly do anything. Rick Sherlock's son went to the Cubs game in Toronto and said the Cubs look good. Nice crowd and the roof was open. I'm not a big fan of the Cubs. I just can't. Again, I look at this team and I could just be wrong, because I've been wrong before, but I was wrong about a couple of teams already this year. I think that you could see a Chicago, a classic, and because this has happened before in history many times, by the way. The Cubs have been in the race in August and totally collapsed the rest of the year. Now, sometimes there was reasons for that when they didn't play night games and such. But I just am not I'm not a fan of the way this Cubs team is put together. But I'm glad your son had a good time in Toronto. It's a nice ballpark. Cleanest city I ever been in Toronto. Cleanest city I ever been in. It is a foregone. Wow. Well, let's just stop the season now. Listen, I'm a fan of what the Orioles have done, but it is far from a foregone conclusion that Baltimore wins the World Series. I mean, first of all, they're very short on pitching, starting pitching specifically. They could use another bat in the lineup, in my mind, but it's a really good team. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they do not have a very good chance to advance and possibly win the World Series. But again, I'm not at this point. I would not tell you anybody's a foregone conclusion. Nobody's an overwhelming favorite. As good as the Braves are, I would not say they're an overwhelming favorite. In fact, I still have the Astros beating them. So really good team. Top 5 at OPS. I can live with OPS, Drew. I do think that's a very relevant stat. Ohtani. Listen, you get above 1,000, you're doing pretty good. Above 800 is good. Above 1,000 is exceptional. Freddie Freeman, imagine how good. This brings up a very good point. Imagine how good the Yankees would be now if they were able to get Freddie Freeman here when he was a free agent. I love Anthony Rizzo. Sorry, he's not nearly the ball player that Freddie Freeman is. How different would this lineup look with Freddie Freeman in it, a left-handed power hitter, and more, day after day? Acuna, I'm surprised he's below 900, or 1,000 rather. Olsen, didn't realize he was up that high. And Mookie Betts is just a great player. Because I've gotten soft. Now I'm soft because I won't just anoint the Orioles, the World Series trophy. I just can't do that. Again, I'm looking at this objectively. If I was soft and just, fair weather, not fair weather fan, but just blind loyalty, I would just tell you my team still got a shot. I'm only 4 games back. OPS. No, it's not oops. It's on base percentage plus slugging. So on base percentage, which is a huge measuring stick for players, especially today. And it doesn't discount batting average, because batting average is part of your on base percentage, obviously. plus slugging percentage, and I think it's a really good stat myself. Welcome Tanner to the Fantasy Football League. Tanner told me he was going to get in. I thought he'd already gotten in. My bad. I'll send Jim a message and tell him there's one more spot left. I know he wanted to. I thought he was going to get in when I sent it to him, but I'll let him know there's one spot left. If somebody beats him. Somebody beats him. Because I don't want to go to 14, and I don't want to get a different uneven number. If we can get to 14, I'm okay with that too. On base, then it should be no, it's on base percentage plus slugging percentage. Sorry, Kenny, if I wasn't clear. So it's OPS. OPS, on base plus slugging, OPS. Or if you put a U in there, you have one of my favorite wines, which is like $300 a bottle. So anyway, what else we got going on? What haven't I talked about here? Anybody's thoughts? Jose Bautista retired as a Toronto Blue Jay this week. I know they loved him in Toronto. I know his teammates loved him. I know he drew the ire of the opponents. But if you know much about Jose Bautista, he played with a swagger. Was he a trendsetter with the bat flip? I mean, he wasn't the first guy to do it, but he was the first guy to really, really make a big deal about it, if you will, and put some flair into it. I thought it was uncalled for. I thought it was disrespecting showing up pitchers. Surprised he didn't take more baseballs to his ear hole. So I think he was a showboat. I don't think he was that great a player. Fairly one-dimensional. And I think you also fire up other teams when you don't need to, which I think might have hurt the Blue Jays at certain times. They had some really good teams that didn't do anything. And I'm just not a big fan of the way that he approached the game itself. So I'll take some comments on that. I know you got something there, Drew, but I want to bring up one thing that might also bring up some. I caught this article late. Where'd it go? Now I lost it. Seriously? Apparently, I keep closing windows and not knowing I'm doing it. I want to find this article. So I want to know why the Mets, including Max Scherzer, thought that Justin Verlander, who I've always been a big fan of, was a diva. The face of the Mets rotation were the team's ostensible co-aces, 40-year-old Verlander and 39-year-old Scherzer. And they both struggled at times on and off field. Let me get here. Interesting. The two likely Hall of Famers who looked to work towards harmony, a source said, after they didn't have the best. I didn't know this. They did not have the best relationships when they pitched for the Tigers from 2010 to 2014, and still had some bumps in their relationship this year. A Met told the Puma that Verlander was a diva who was detached from his Mets teammates and complained about how the team's analytics department was not as at the level as the one he worked with during his first stint with the Astros. How about you go out there and pitch, Justin, and let the team worry about analytics, which, by the way, we worry about too much anyway. Oh, boy. The source says that the team had a different vibe than last year's rotation, as Scherzer and Chris Bassett were free in offering information to the team's other younger pitchers, which Verlander apparently was not willing to do. Interesting. Who else is this? So Verklander, 2020. Think about it. We did not get off. We kind of got off on the wrong foot. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. Verklander, as a member of the Astros, said to this is after he left the team. Even though we started playing some good baseball at times, we never really hit our stride, and we're kind of banging on all cylinders. Where we kind of were banging on all cylinders. I can't exactly say why that is. Well, there's a lot of reasons. Nobody hit. Bad fundamental baseball. So again, I guess this goes back to basically, and I'd forgotten about them being teammates with the Tigers. Really good Tigers teams back in the early 2000s. So, all right, what do you got here, Drew? Top 5 ERA, qualified innings pitched. Snell, surprising. Evalde, surprising. Cole, not surprising. Steele, surprising. Gausman, good pitcher with Toronto. So, surprising names there. There's zero chance. And again, you can make the argument that he won't, if he wasn't to win, it would be because he's not going to be on a winning team. Ohtani has got to be the MVP this year, I think. As much as I said Judge was last year, Ohtani's got to be this year. He's making a run at 60 home runs. He's the only reason to watch his team play. And I think Acuna's got it locked up as well. There's some good performances other than these two guys. Acuna has had, in a different way, every bit as a great season as Ohtani. Now, Ohtani can pitch, but he hasn't. His pitching's been curtailed by some blister problems and some other things. So, OBP. Let's just go back to oops. Where are we? Let's move on here. Do I have anything else I want to talk about? I guess I'm pretty good. We can go back. If you guys have more baseball you want to get into, Drew, you got some more stuff you want to throw out there, that's fine. I want to jump into the NFL a little bit. We're back. That's not what I wanted. Where the heck's my other... Oh, did I not save my notes? College football. Where the heck is my NFL notes? Oh, well. Well, we'll just do NFL news and notes. One of the big developments this week, was Darren Hamlin getting back on the field yesterday, or this past week, I should say, and playing in the Bills exhibition game against who'd they play? Yesterday they played the Colts, and he said it was, emotional to get back out there. There was some nerves as he was before he made that first hit. But it's very encouraging to see him back out there, and it'll be very encouraging to see him, how he grows from this experience that he had. And this is a good thing. And I want to, and in conjunction with this, I know there's some Bills fans here, if Dave Guyette's still here, and you guys are football fans in general, and we talk about leadership a lot. This came off of my golf match yesterday, and part of it was while we were having some beers, so maybe that's why. But some Bills fans and some non-Bills fans, they could be watching today. If they are, I hope they'll comment. Mentioned that they had lost respect for Josh Allen, and I don't understand this line of thinking, because of the Hamlin situation last year, and because he cried and he was emotional about his teammate being injured, that he felt he could not come back and lead the team. I couldn't disagree more. This was an emotional event that took place. And also, there was some debate about whether that game should have continued. I don't think there's any way that game could have continued, because at the time they stopped the game, we didn't know whether this young man was going to live. And to say that a player is not a leader because he's emotional, and maybe this comes from the fact that the players were saying they didn't want to continue. Josh Allen has his faults as an NFL quarterback, but he's one of the most exciting players in the game. He's got talent that maybe he hasn't completely harnessed, and he gets a bit wild and loose at times. He's the leader of this football team. And I talk about leadership all the time, and I'd love to get, and I know a lot of you guys feel the same way about leadership. Is there any doubt in anybody's mind that the leader of the Buffalo Bills is Josh Allen? Or he shows any lack of leadership? I don't agree even a little bit. Get some comments here. Who did he bash? And listen, I saw you guys. Listen, and here I go. You're going to call me soft again. I missed something because you guys had a comment. You guys, I think Rick, and maybe I couldn't find it. I was going to message you guys, and now I got to ask you here on the show, and I would rather have figured it out beforehand, but I did not. I procrastinated, did not reach out. Rick, you had made a comment, I believe it was Rick, that Rodgers was throwing teammates under the bus. Now Kenny's saying he's bashing the Jets. Did I miss something? I have not seen one story. Let me look at the post here quick. I looked for news right after you guys posted that, and I didn't comment because I couldn't find anything. I could not find one story leading to anything about Aaron Rodgers bashing his team. Now, again, please, I'm not soft on Aaron Rodgers. I don't like Aaron Rodgers. But I found some things that made me feel a little bit better about Aaron Rodgers this week, not worse. So I'd love to know where that comment comes from. In fact, watching the first episode of Hard Knocks this week, and again, it's edited, I get it. And I believe this to be accurate because I watched him mentoring Zach Wilson on the practice field during the Hall of Fame exhibition game. And I don't think it's manufactured to make Rodgers look better, because one of the positive things that came out of Green Bay about Rodgers was that, unlike his predecessor, Brett Favre, who said it was not my job to make him better and coach a rookie quarterback to potentially take my job, he worked with Jordan Love to help him develop into, hopefully, the Packers think, a decent NFL quarterback. Now, again, my opinion about Aaron Rodgers hasn't changed. I don't like him. The move to the Jets was a no-brainer for the Jets, though. They weren't winning with Zach Wilson. They didn't have better options. This is a 2-year gamble that's worth it. It could be a train wreck. I kind of hope it is a train wreck. But I don't see any evidence of a train wreck. So that's why I'm hoping we may have some comments here that will help me. NFL quarterbacks didn't cover themselves in glory. Richardson didn't play well. No, Young didn't play well. I know Will Levis didn't play well. But again, it's a first exhibition game, and I can't put a lot of stock in what goes on here. And personally, and these guys will play. I want to see starters play more. These guys will be starters, both of them, more than likely. I want to see these guys playing more of these exhibition games. I don't want to see bad football through September because these guys don't play in games. But you're absolutely right. They did not cover themselves in glory here in week one. Again, people who never played the game would have wanted to see the game continue. Have you ever had a teammate down? Yeah, I don't understand. I mean, we had the whole Skip Bayless controversy that actually ended up leading to Shannon Sharpe leaving their show on Fox. And yeah, I don't get how anybody thought. I mean, look at there are games. Have there been games? Yes, where guys are carried off the field with spinal cord injuries, horrible things. Daryl Stingley was taken off the field paralyzed and unconscious in a exhibition game, and they continued to play. But this was something of a totally different sort in my mind. This wasn't even a football injury. I think that's the difference. This was a shock. A young man who just made a normal football play, got up and collapsed. And for all they knew, their teammate was not going to survive to get to the hospital. So I agree, Rick. I don't understand how anybody thinks they could have continued to play that game. Allen's line would go through hell for him. There you go. I agree 100%. I don't get it. And I just wanted to kind of check myself and see if I was losing my mind. This guy is a leader. You don't win football games without a leader. We talk about this all the time. And a quarterback needs to be that guy. And on defense, obviously, you're going to have a linebacker. There'll be a leader on that defense as well. But the team, especially the offense, Josh Allen has showed me nothing. Number one, he's really shown me nothing to say he's not one of the top 3 quarterbacks in football. And he's also shown me nothing to say that he's not a great leader. Has he won a Super Bowl yet? No, but great leaders don't all win Super Bowls. 29 teams go home. I lost track of number of teams again. Rodgers did not invite me to the cave. No. Again, here's the thing. Just because I have problems with guys and don't have much use for them, I wouldn't want them on my team. If I see them do something I like, I will comment on it. I like the way he talked to Zach Wilson. I like Zach Wilson's attitude as far as having to take a back seat to Aaron Rodgers. I think this whole relationship will probably will be positive for Zach Wilson, assuming he will be the quarterback of the Jets in 3 years. This is a no-brainer for the Jets. And again, I still haven't got an answer on who he threw under the bus. Who did he tell me who he criticized? Don't tell me I'm soft, but you got a story that I can't find anywhere. Who did he criticize? Who did he throw under the bus? Quarterback controversy in New England? No. Malik Cunningham, by the way, this is a good point, Drew. And it's funny because as I went in, was waiting to be brought into the broadcast on Mac and the Jack this morning, they were talking about Malik Cunningham and how, if he played well and Mac Jones had a couple of bad games, stop. There's no quarterback controversy in New England. If it was, it wouldn't be for Malik Cunningham. Malik Cunningham, the team loves him, but not a quarterback. Will he play some quarterback? Possibly. If he makes the team. They're trying to turn him into a wide receiver like they did with Julian Edelman. People need, and again, I'm not saying you, Drew, but the people who talk about this need to pay attention to the whole situation. The Patriots' number one goal is to turn Malik Cunningham into a wide receiver. Also, this year, at least, they hope that they can keep him. Whether they keep him is still debatable. But they want to be able to have him run the scout team so that they can get better and scheme better for these mobile quarterbacks like Malik Cunningham is, and stand in for the Lamar Jacksons. Hurts and these guys that are Jalen Hurts, they got right away, who can run the football and they're mobile. And the Patriots have struggled against that type of quarterback forever. Even when they were in the middle of their dynasty, they struggled against these types of quarterbacks. Is Malik Cunningham going to challenge for the starting quarterback on the Patriots? Never. Probably never. He's going to be a wide receiver. They want to make him a Julian Edelman type. Will that mean he will play some quarterback when he's on this roster? And it's highly unlikely, at least today, and that could change. And I'm very high in this kid too, and I hope he makes the roster because I think he can bring something to this game. Even if he's a wide receiver, does that mean he will not be a quarterback at some point? Or play quarterback and not be a quarterback? Play some quarterback, with some gimmick plays? No, he will definitely, if he's on this roster, have some plays designed for him for certain game situations. He's a tremendous athlete. Mac Jones is the quarterback of this team. He played a great fourth quarter, had a great drive at the end of the game, a game they lost 20-9, and I could care less. Wins and losses mean nothing in the preseason. They just don't. But there's no controversy. He played the third quarter, like I said, that last drive against guys who are going to be, I don't know, working at McDonald's in a month. But I do get the tongue-in-cheek part of that. But the problem is, the reason you bring it up and have the laughy face is there's people who actually believe that could be possible. It's not possible. J.P. France and Dave Dunning, back to baseball for a second here. J.P. France and Dan Dunning both have been keys to success for both pitching rotations at opportunity, after opportunity from injuries, unsung for this season. I talked about Dan Dunning a lot, and you brought up J.P. France a lot. Yes, they've both been integral parts of the Rangers and Astros success, and they're going to be a lot of fun too. John DeLaud shows up. We'll talk about some college football stuff in a little bit too, John. By the way, the Big Ten's about to be a better conference than yours. Just saying. I just thought I'd see what John would say to that. One thing I'll throw out there about the SEC and the Big Ten. If we were playing if the 2024 season were starting in September, 15 of the 25 top teams in the top 25 preseason poll, would be from the SEC or the Big Ten. To tell you the ramifications of what's been going on, that's going to be the reality, or more, or worse. It depends how you want to look at it. John, I don't think you made it with us Wednesday night. We talked a lot about this. I don't think the SEC is done, by the way. I don't want to lose. I'm still trying to find out about Aaron Rodgers and who he threw under the bus. This is Allen, I guess. He could pull the X's stunt and commit a crime in the middle of Buffalo and still be loved. That sounds like Donald Trump. Who? You got to show me something more than that. What did he say? He just said they need some work? Again, I saw one article. Again, I must be having some issues. I've not found one. Have I seen where he's talked about the offensive line and them needing to maybe play better? Sure. Is that throwing them under the bus? Now, we talk about leaders, and you need guys to call guys out at sometimes too if they aren't playing well. I haven't seen anything where, by the way, somebody took exception to what Rodgers said, other than fans. We know they struggled against Eli, and he could really scramble. That's a good point. Eli. Eli Manning. Jay Cutler with 2 Super Bowl championships. Probably too harsh on Eli. Hey, look at, I have said nothing except those 2 Sundays, the Giants were the best team on the field. Jose Urquidy looks to, listen, the Astros are getting healthy at the right time. Problem is the Rangers aren't slowing down. And at the end of the day, both these teams are going to make the playoffs, and it's going to be very interesting. You could see them squaring off in the playoffs, and I think that'd be very interesting for the state of Texas and interesting for baseball in general. So Urquidy's only had 1 start, I think, since he came back from injury, right? So, yeah, I'm not positive about that, but, again, I think he'll be better. You don't believe he's important for the playoffs. Javier's important, more important than Urquidy, I would agree. And he has not looked like he looked at the end of last season. Agreed. Nikhil Harry. Listen, if he made your team, Rick, I would say you got some serious issues at wide receiver. Nikhil Harry is one of the softest players I've ever seen come through the Patriot team. Lots of talent. Soft. Speaking of soft, Kenny, Nikhil Harry, his picture is in the dictionary next to it. ACC made a huge mistake with Stanford, not taking them, because nothing's happened there yet. We're kind of mixing. We're college and pro football. We'll talk about them together. That's all good. There's been some talk, and the talks are not done yet, but there's definitely been some talk about Cal and Stanford being brought into the ACC. It makes no sense. They don't bring anything. And again, Kenny, you know that it's about money. Financially, they bring nothing to the table for the ACC. And 4 teams. I want to say Clemson. Crap, let me find the thing. I know Clemson was one. There were 4 teams that are against adding them. Florida State, North Carolina, Clemson, and North Carolina State are opposed. I don't see where that makes sense. And they do describe the discussions as being on life support. So I don't see where the ACC makes sense with these teams. ACC, if they were going to go west, needed to be able to bring in more teams. They could have brought in Stanford and Cal, but they also needed Washington and Oregon. And if they really wanted to be bold, and listen, I hate this realignment. You know I do. But in the realities that we're living in today in college football, if I was the ACC, I would have made my move before 5 teams left the Pac-12, and I would have merged with the entire freaking league. Only chance the ACC has to survive, because John DeLon knows that the SEC, I don't think the Big Ten's done. I think the Big Ten very likely may bring in Stanford and Cal, or bring in Stanford and use it to try to lure Notre Dame in. But Notre Dame's not going to a league unless forced to. And as long as they got their own TV contract, if they get the money from NBC when their contract comes up, or somebody else, then they're going to stay on their own. There's no reason for them to join a league. But I do see them going to 20, and I don't think the SEC's done yet either. The SEC would... Oh, by the way, the Big Ten's also looking... How do you say Big Ten when there's 16 teams? The Big Ten's looking out west to Stanford and Cal, as I said. Potentially they fit academically. They've also looked into the ACC in Virginia and North Carolina. The SEC will be looking at the ACC, I'm sure. Clemson, natural fit. Florida State, not so sure. Florida State might be overplaying their hand here. with their recent comments about that, not when we leave the league, and not if, but when we leave the league. They got till the 15th. They got till Tuesday to say, oh, Drew, thank you for the birthday card, by the way. Tuesday's my birthday, by the way. Thank you for the card. Thank Ellen for the card. What was I going to say? What was I saying? Oh, they got till Tuesday to say we want out. Anybody has till Tuesday to say I want out and be able to play in the league next year. I don't think Florida State's leaving the ACC without an offer from somebody else. SEC has won the last 4 natties, and it's not looking good for you Yankees in 2023. Well, it's never looking good for us Yankees. The Big Ten's not Yankees. I hate to burst your bubble. Yankees are all up north here with us. Anyway, I like Georgia's chances. I've said it all along. I like their chances of being the first team to repeat in 70 years almost. Not repeat, three-peat in 70 years. The first team to have a chance to do it since USC, 2005, 6, when they lost to Texas in the championship game. SEC is going to be really good. The Big Ten is going to be really good. And they still have their brands there. They still have Alabama and Georgia and LSU. Big Ten still got Ohio State and Michigan. The Big 12, who wants to be the other part of the Big 3, just no identity there. It's a good league. It's a fun league. They're going to have some great games, but there's no brand. The brand's leaving. Oklahoma is the only brand name. Well, Texas, but not. Again, they haven't been a member, but for 25 years, not 100. And I will add, this round of realignment is, to me, more depressing than anything so far, because the Pac-12 and John DeLon, you can bash the Pac-12 all you want, but they've been around 100 years. They've got more national championships in Division I sports in general than any other conference. Any other conference. In fact, I think they had like 3 of the top 5. And it's sad to see it go. Again, I know I'm old school. I'm screaming at you to get off my frickin' lawn, but this is what's wrong. Regional rivalry is going to disappear, and it's ugly. I'm trying to embrace the new realities and say what's best now for the ACCs of the world, for the Clemsons, the Florida States, for Notre Dame. Pat McAfee show. Did they really talk about real stuff on a Pat McAfee show? There's no bigger clown in sports than Pat McAfee. There's just not. How ESPN's paying this guy, how they fire half the company and pay this guy the money they're paying him is amazing to me. Because he's a clown. Hope you're watching, Pat. Be shocking. Oh, by the way, now Pat McAfee's a little pissed off at Aaron Rodgers himself because he dissed him on the first episode of Hard Knocks. Stanford would raise the IQ of the ACC to passable. Listen, that's not fair. There are some really good academic schools in the ACC, by the way, Kenny. Miami is one of the best academic schools in the country. Duke is one of the best academic schools in the country. North Carolina is one of the best academic schools in the country. I won't go through the rest of them. Virginia is a really good academic school. This is why Notre Dame's or the Big Ten's interested in them. By the way, speaking of Notre Dame and them going to a conference, as I started to say before, unless the money isn't there, and when their contract comes up for renegotiation with NBC or whomever else gets in the bidding, they're going to be looking at $15 million a year upwards of. They'll probably get it, and as long as they get that money, they're not joining a conference. The only way they're going to get forced into a conference is if they don't get the TV money, or the NCAA. I shouldn't say that. The college football playoff said you're not going to be eligible for the playoff unless you join a league. Otherwise, Notre Dame's staying where they are. And they also have a contract with the ACC that says if they join a league, it'll be the ACC. So because they entered into this quasi, they're not a league member, but we schedule 5 games with the ACC every year. They have a written contract, and again, they'll buy their way out of it, that the league that they would join would be the ACC. And by the way, that's probably the only way the ACC survives in the long term. Notre Dame's a much better fit for the Big Ten. They fit the whole profile. The academics are there. The history is there. They play most of the teams, or many of the teams, year in and year out already. They play Purdue every year. They play USC every year. They've often played Michigan or Ohio State or in a given year. Stanford, they play every year if they were to bring Stanford in. Worst part about all the college football conference raids is the effect it has on the players on the non-football teams. Well, first of all, it does affect the players on the teams, the football teams. And it affects the players on the non-football teams greatly. In more ways than one. So when you've got leagues that go coast to coast like the Big Ten does, it's not so hard for the football teams. They travel once a week. What's going to happen to the when Rutgers women's softball's got to go out and play UCLA? They're going to go for a week? No, again, don't tell me it's about student athletic. Don't stop it. The NCAA needs to stop talking about student athletes because they don't care about them, Drew, to your point. Now, I understand you can take classes remotely and all this other stuff now. The world's different. They don't have to be in a classroom necessarily. But there's other factors involved as well. Kenny mentioned last week about Title IX being obsolete and whatnot. Now, the fact that some of these schools will be helped because they're going to go to conferences where they're getting more money, and the football programs fund a lot of these non-revenue generating sports, like ping pong that Kenny mentioned. So the teams that are moving to bigger conferences aren't going to be hurt monetarily. There'll be a trickle-down effect, and they'll be helped. That doesn't solve the problem Drew's talking about. But there are teams. Look at Oregon State and Washington State. Left high and dry in the Pac-12, where they were making somewhere short of $30 million a team from TV contracts, of which that money trickles down to other sports. They're looking at most likely landing spot for both these schools is the Mountain West. The TV contract pays the teams $4 million a year. That's a huge cut in revenue. So there's a lot of issues there, Drew. Agreed. The 4 teams that said no are afraid of those 2 teams. They're not afraid. Stop it. Clemson's afraid of Clemson and Florida State are afraid of Stanford and Cal. No, I think they know it doesn't make any sense. And I think, by the way, these teams are also looking out for themselves. I don't think it's any coincidence that 3 of those 4 teams have been mentioned prominently at going to other conferences. Clemson, Florida State, and North Carolina, either the Big Ten or the SEC. And quite frankly, if I'm the Big 12, I just mentioned a little while ago, there's no real brand name in the Big 12. Some good football schools. There'll be some fun games out there, but there's no real brand. There's no real headliner with Oklahoma gone and Texas gone. If I'm the Big 12, I go chasing Florida State and Clemson. Again, makes no less sense. We already got a team in Florida in the Big 12 and UFC. They already got a team in West Virginia, so we don't have a team that far away from Clemson. They got a team in Ohio. I got to look at this. I'm unhappy about it. I hate it. College football, I will say for the 1 millionth time, regional sport with national appeal, and the regional rivalries are disappearing because of this coast to coast, region doesn't matter approach to conferences. And maybe, get to your comment here in a second, John, maybe all of this ends up helping the regional part of it, because the way we're going, we're going to have however many teams, 48, 60, whatever, I don't know. One league with a bunch of different divisions. It'd be like the NFL. We'll have teams on the West Coast, teams in the Midwest, the Mideast, or I'd say Midwest. I'm sorry, West Coast, Mideast, Midwest, Northeast, South, East. Now you get back to regional matchups. We're still a ways off from that. I want what I had. It's never going to happen. I want the Southwest Conference back. That's what started all this. The Southwest Conference breaking up 30 years ago, whatever it was. Cal and Stanford likely have an offer to the what? But it only pays about half a share. They're flirting with the ACC. Who are you talking about? The Big Ten. Oh, the Big Ten. Well, again, I'm pretty sure Washington, Oregon's only getting half. At least, again, it won't be half forever. Well, that brings up another question about this whole realignment thing we'll talk about in a second. Washington, Oregon's deal is to be less than what the other teams are getting, which is upwards of $50 to $60 million a year, which is still better than they would get at the Big 12. They'd probably get what they would get at the Big 12, and less than they would get the ACC. And then it would be brought up to the rest. But again, another problem with the realignments, not necessarily the realignments, the TV contracts, we're going to approach the next big problem where the haves, and it's already happened in the ACC, where Florida State is saying, we and Clemson are the big draws here. We're creating the money that's being brought in with the TV packages. We should get more. You're going to see it in the SEC with the Alabamas and the Georgias and the LSUs saying, why is Vanderbilt getting the same cut I'm getting? You'll see it in the Big Ten. Why is Northwestern getting the same as this will be the next thing. And after that, it's going to be a worry about the Vanderbilts and the Northwesterns and the other less attractive teams, for lack of a better term, in these conferences getting dropped overall. Vanderbilt, John, and I'd love your opinion on Vanderbilt, potentially one day being asked to leave the SEC like Felix Unger was asked to leave his apartment by his wife. Asked never to return. a founding member of the SEC, Vanderbilt. Just like Oregon State, founding member of the Pac-12 100 years ago, left out in the dust. The other schools don't give a crap about anything but themselves. They don't care about the history of their league. They don't care about the other teams that helped build that league, no matter what their standing is now. The Big Ten actually has 18. Thank you. Right. You're right. I miscounted again. That's my Perth education. Things change so fast. I had forgotten to add in Washington and Oregon. So they're going to 20, most likely. You got the SEC, they'll probably stay at 16 for now, but they're going to go to 20. Party on the small deck. The big deck. The construction starts on the deck expansion in about a week and a half. Building permits in place, waiting for materials. Big Ten, League of Chokers. Got an awful lot of national championships. Recently, I won't disagree. Anything west of Lafayette, Louisiana, or north of Louisville, Kentucky is Yankees. I didn't know we were still. Wait a minute. I'm pretty sure from basically North Carolina south, you all fought for the same side. Saquon Barkley's going to have a good season. Saquon Barkley's going to have a great season. Giants, you guys better watch out for the Giants. Don't sleep on the Giants. Mad New Yorker thinks they stink. I think they will be better and better. Wallow, listen, I'll bring this up. I got a couple topics I'm going to chat about yet. We got 10 minutes left. I'm going to talk about, John gives me a good segue, and we'll get into any of your comments about anything we talked about so far. You don't feel you have to comment on what I'm going to talk about. Real quickly, water polo championships don't impress me. Whatever, John. I mean, they're important to the people. Water polo is important too. I want to bring up again, we talked about odd sports on this show. Last week on ESPN, after I finished this show and got myself situated outside, watching some TV, ESPN was covering the professional pillow fighting championships. And then right afterwards, they went to foot golf, which is basically golf with a soccer ball and holes this big. So we've talked about some odd sports on this show, and that's one. Maybe we'll get some video for next week. Also, we still got some time. I talked about this last week. We had the issue last week with the horse owned by Bill Parcells being destroyed. I think we talked about it last week, or maybe on one of my other shows during the week. Being destroyed, like he was leading the race, and you don't normally see this. He had a catastrophic injury happen like 2 lengths from the finish line. Tragedy, no doubt about it. 10 horses, I think, to date have been euthanized during the Saratoga meet. I saw a stat that nationwide, over 7,600 horses have had to be euthanized since 2002, or between 2009 and 22, excuse me. I have this debate with some friends of mine a lot. People are animal lovers saying these horses are being abused. These animals are being abused. I disagree 100%. By the way, that number, that 7,600 is 0.2% of all the horses that ran races during that time frame. So it's a very small amount of horses that actually participate. Number one, these horses are bred to do just what they're doing. if you didn't let them run, which they want to do, and race competitively, that's what they're bred to do. They see another horse, they want to beat him, which is what we want out of all our athletes. And not to let them do that, to me, would be cruel. Now, if there's other things going on where horses are being, pains being masked with drugs or blood thinners and the things that they've done with horses that are not on the up and up, that's different. If horses are being mistreated after they race because they are not, maybe they're geldings and they're never going to produce, $1 million foals, and they end up in glue factories like one of the great Kentucky Derby winners that is Fernando did. Just, that's disturbing. But the racing part of it is not animal cruelty. These horses are treated like freaking kings. They're made to run. Now, I understand, unfortunately, the way their bodies are built, it's a lot of weight and a lot of power being held up by nothing. I read an analogy one time. It's like you and I trying to run on our pinkies. But these horses are bred to do just what they do. And my argument would be it would be cruel to not let them do what they've been bred to do. So anyway, if you guys have some comments on that, I just wanted to get that out. And we'll talk about anything else we've been chatting about today, these last 7 minutes, or if we go a little over, that's fine. Realignment is about nothing else but, and always has been, money. Well, that's absolutely true. The broadcasting channels bear responsibility for encouraging all. Not bear responsibility, bear all of it. All of it. TV runs it all. This really started, I said it started with the demise of the Southwest Conference. It really started when Notre Dame broke away from the CFA. The CFA was the organization that really secured and kind of managed the TV contracts back in the day. Notre Dame broke away from the CFA, signed their own contract with NBC. Shortly thereafter, the Longhorns of Texas wanted to build their own TV network and break away from the rest of the Southwest Conference, and in fact did. The Southwest Conference was having trouble because they were all, after Arkansas left, they were all in Texas and they were having trouble. They felt they were too regional in a regional sport. Go figure. So Texas, Texas A&M, Baylor, all but 4 teams, SMU, Rice, TCU, and Houston. Everybody else went to the Big 12. And that was over money. So every time it's been about money, right? When the Big East dissolved, it was about money. And not the basketball schools, the football schools. So, yes, as we talk about all the time, and again, I've always been one, and I'm not going to be a hypocrite. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, I'm done with college football, I'm not watching anymore. How many people have I seen when political issues or whatever, again, the different things that have been brought up in professional sports over the last 5 years, whatever the topic, and I'm not going to get specific on that right now, but you know what I'm talking about. The hypocrites who told me, I'm never watching a game again, ever. But they seem to always be watching a game. I'm never going to be a hypocrite. I've always been able to separate the sport from the business side. It's getting harder. The lines are blurred so much. It's getting harder and harder to do, especially doing this. But you're right. And if they move, they become irrelevant in that league. Again, I said this last week too, right? And I've said it on the sports huddle, the football huddle, college football huddle. Oklahoma and Texas are not the brand now. They're the brand Big Ten. When they moved to the SEC, they're just another team. Georgia, Alabama, LSU, Tennessee. Those are the brand of the SEC, not Texas. There's a brilliant statement, Paula. What about fan travel? Again, this is another thing. It's actually very. I'm glad you pointed out it wasn't your statement. You have been known to come up with some good ones. Yes, don't belittle yourself. But fan travel is part of this as well. Some of these schools travel a lot. The Pac-12, great example. Great participation in fans traveling from, say, UCLA, USC to Washington or Oregon. They would make those trips. Now that you think they're going to go to Rutgers, they're going to travel to New Jersey to see them play Rutgers. They might go to Ohio to see them play Ohio State or Michigan to see them play Michigan. But you think they're traveling to Purdue, Wisconsin, Minnesota? Excellent point. Another factor that certainly plays into this. Again, Kenny, you've said it forever. Drew just said it. It's all about money. They don't care about the players, the student athlete, by the way. They want to limit their ability to earn money, but not their own. So again, they're making me change a stance that I was very strong about. I haven't changed it yet, but it's hypocritical to try to limit the player's earning potential, but then maximize your own. They don't care about the student athlete. They don't care about the fan. They don't care about the history of their league. They don't care about the rest of the teams in their league. They don't care about anything except themselves and how to put more money in their coffers. And by the way, it's not getting passed down to the student population because it costs a fortune to send these kids to these schools, even the state schools. Many of your TV references are only known to a few of us. Which TV references? I talked about Gabe. Earlier, I talked about don't confuse Gabe Kaplan with Gabe Kapler. I don't remember what the most recent one was. Sometimes I just rattle them off, and it's okay if only a few of you get it. It's okay if only I get it. Isn't it Matt New Yorker the one that said he hit off Nolan Ryan? I don't remember if he did or not. If he did, God bless him. I wouldn't even see the ball against Nolan Ryan. Topic for another day. Nolan Ryan may be the most underrated pitcher in the history of baseball. I shouldn't say most underrated. Most maligned great pitcher in the history of Major League Baseball. Maybe Carlos still has a shot at being a pro foot golf. That might be a natural for him. He's a soccer guy. I got to tell you, I thought I went into a time warp when I was watching ESPN in 1979 when they were anything. Pillow fighting? Guys, you got to check out this pillow fighting. It's like, I was comical. It was a train wreck I couldn't take my eyes off of. Grown men, big guys, sculpted, for the most part, hitting each other with a freaking pillow. Water polo is a great sport. Hey, listen, I don't want to watch water polo from noon to midnight, but it's fun to watch now and again. I watch the Olympic water polo team all the time. People complain about horses being put down, but we allow the older generation will suffer incurable diseases. That's a good point. Costs a lot to get old in this country, and it costs a lot to die in this country. End of life should not cost as much as it does. It's an interesting analogy, though. But and those same people usually, everybody's hypocritical, including me in certain areas. But I just don't listen. To me, those horses are bred to do what they do, and let them have fun. If it ends in tragedy, they live their life doing what they wanted to do. Who wouldn't sign up for that? I watch what's the show I watch with the fishermen and oh crap, the crab fishermen up in Alaska. Oh crap, I can't remember the name of the show now. I haven't watched it in a while. Those guys have very dangerous jobs. Nobody's calling for the abolishment of crab fishing. I don't think the Big Ten and the SEC. I don't know why you spell it. I love the way you do that, though. The one. Oh, I guess it's just a big. I don't know what. I'm curious of the why you put it that way there, John. I'm not sure if it's just something I'm missing. I don't think the Big Ten and the SEC are going to purge the smaller schools like Vandy. I hope not. No, it can't be because, by the way, where are the wins going to come from? Right? I hope not. It feels like the natural evolution of this is, number one, take money away from those schools like Vandy. By the way, you also need them to keep your and Kenny made this comment a bit in jest, I think, about Cal and Stanford going to the ACC and raising the IQ. These schools have to keep a certain academic standard as a league. And schools like Vanderbilt and Northwestern certainly help that. Well, the Big Ten schools are really good. Listen, a lot of these schools are good schools. We shouldn't berate the schools in general. Some are not as good as others. I'll be honest with you, I did not know what a really good academic school Miami was until I came into this family. Besides, Vandy has a role in the SEC. Listen, they were one of the founding members of the league. You start removing founding members. I mean, they didn't remove Oregon State. They just left them behind in the Pac-12, which I think is just criminal. The Sacklers of college football. Gabe Kaplan. Mr. Kata. Yes, sir. See, some of you guys get my TV references. I'm still trying to figure out which one Rick said. Speaking of travel, let's get to West Point this year. Have been to Georgia and Syracuse. Army still has the most tradition. I came up with the schedule, Rick. We'll talk about it again when you brought it. I'll look at it real quick right now. I thought I had a really good game that we could potentially go see, and we'll look into it. They're where are they? Independence, Army. Stay with me, guys. There's a few more comments I'm going to get to, but now I got to look at this for Rick. So, at home, they got Boston College at home on 10-7. They got Troy, UMass. They got Air Force at home in November, which might be fun. They got Coastal Carolina at home, which might also be fun on 11-18. And I stupidly said they got Navy at home, but they're just a home team. They're obviously not playing at West Point. So I think there's 4 games I'd be interested in going to, and we can talk about it. Boston College, 10-7. I feel like I might have something going on that day, but Air Force and Coastal Carolina, I think, would all be really good games. So let's talk more about it. Kenny, I know you were interested, so we'll try to put that together. Didn't Gabe Kaplan host high stakes, no limit hold'em? He did. Gabe Kaplan was a big card player and also starred in A Fish Called Wanda, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Or no, not A Fish Called Wanda. That was a different show. The Fish That Saved Pittsburgh, starring Julius Irving. Why didn't they put down Joe Theismann? Actually, there's some people that probably wish they did put down Joe Theismann, but that was a gruesome. By the way, still the most gruesome thing I've ever seen on a sports field. Joe Theismann's broken leg. Time we got 10:36. We'll go a few more minutes here. Vandy's very good at baseball. Vandy is very good at baseball. Agreed. The problem is football, and Drew brought it up earlier that, you know, what's going on with realignment and with football affects other sports. There's been a talk, and again, it's a little late once these conferences fold, and maybe this should have happened now before the Pac-12 totally dissolves, that the football programs should just move away from the college affiliations, conference. The conference affiliations the colleges have, the football should just move away and operate on their own, which you may see. And in some ways, again, that might be a good thing for the sport, and you might end up with more regional stuff. But then there'd be no reason to leave the conferences now, would there? Miami has one of the best medical schools in the country. Excellent. Good call by John DeLong. We should berate the school in general, but the sports programs, we should not berate the school in general, but the sports programs, IQ is, I get what you're saying. That's a different situation, yes. And not in every case. And again, berating all of the sports programs or lumping even at, the Clemson football team, let's say, into one lump isn't fair to some of those kids who are really good and are like academic All-Americans. So, and again, I don't know if there are any on Clemson. I'm assuming there are. So again, it's probably unfair for us to lump them all together. And I tend to do the same thing as well. No more excuses. Let's go. I got you. I got no excuses. I just said I might have something on 10-7. You guys help me out. I can't do the whole thing here. Pick a date. I'll go. I'll look at the 10-7 thing. This week, John, Rick, Kenny, anybody else here locally? Drew, you want to go? You're certainly more than welcome. No, you're not a huge college football fan, but there is no experience like going to West Point to a game, I can tell you right now, because there's a lot more going on there than football. Let's pick a date between 10-7, which is Boston College, 11-4, which is Air Force, and 11-18, which is Coastal Carolina. I think they'd all be fun games to go to. I don't know if we're going to be playing. I don't know if we'd be playing golf in November. But anyway, guys, another tremendous Sunday morning for me. You guys helped me out a lot here. I mean, I put this list together. I get to play off your comments all day, and it makes it so easy for me. I have loved this show like I love it every Sunday morning. Drew, Rick, Kenny, Alan, CA, John, DeLong, whoever else joined us that I'm missing, I apologize. I'm trying to look back at the comments a little bit, see if I missed somebody. If I did, I'm sorry. Oh, Dave Guyette was with us earlier. So thank you guys for tuning in. You make this show go, and I love it. It's my favorite show. Just in the college football huddle, my favorite shows. Guys, we'll see you next Sunday. I got to check out the feed here. I don't know if I'm happy with that. We'll see you next Sunday at 8:30 a.m. We'll see you Wednesday night with the college football huddle at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And we'll see you with some shows on Friday as well. See you guys later. Have a great Sunday.